Hey, loves. It's Monday, and I gotta be honest, the conversation that I would like to have right now is a heavy one. So, if it feels like you've had a day that's been a lot, or if maybe you feel like it's a bit early in the week to get this serious, then I 100% completely support that. Please do what is important and feels good for you because what I want to talk about today is not easy and it is really important. I'm also someone who usually, when I have something that has impacted me emotionally, when it's really big, like I'm feeling right now, I tend to go and do the work on my own, figure out what the lesson is, or what wisdom I was able to extract from it, or how I processed it, so that I can come and share it with you guys. And I do that because I don't want to do harm. I do that because it helps me to just share from that place of having figured it out, so to speak. And what I need to talk to you guys today about, like, there is nothing to figure out here. It's literally just needing to feel it. Um, and so I'm not coming to you today with this like prepackaged idea. I don't have a beautiful thing with a bow to tie up at the end of this conversation. We might be left with more questions than we started with. And I'm hoping that you're going to lean into this discomfort with me because while I gave myself the weekend to be in these feelings, I also feel like I have a responsibility to come and have a conversation as well. And so even though I don't have it all figured out yet, I didn't want to drag this out. And so here we are. Um, I'm someone who um, uh, I'm someone who has a mixed heritage, which it turns out is like pretty at war within itself. Um, my family is predominantly French Canadian, and I also have some Nations lineage in there, which makes me part Métis. And because of the way First Nations people have been treated, I have no connection to that part of my history. I don't know any of the traditions. I don't know the language. I don't know the food. I don't know the ceremonies. I feel the connection because I know, particularly, I can give you a perfect example actually. When I spent time at the Chehalis property where I hosted my retreat in 2015, and I had been there as a retreat participant a couple of times before that. It is a First Nations property. Deep healing takes place there. And my relationship to that land was palpable. Like I could feel its heartbeat. It felt like it was part of me. Now, interestingly, like I'm from back east, I'm from an entirely different part of the country. And so, what we're talking about is almost like that collective union that they have across different bands across the country and probably across North America as a whole. But this was not my land, but I could feel its heartbeat. I could feel the energy of being in there, even though I had no connection to the rites and rituals that took place there. This is a super uncomfortable conversation to have as a very, 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 very white woman. I'm also a recovering Catholic, and this is where things get a little bit messy. So, aside from I'm trying to figure out where to even start, you guys, honestly. Let me give you the background. On Friday, and I didn't want to put this in the title of this video because I know this story is doing a lot of harm to different Indigenous people across the country right now. And the conversation needs to take place, particularly amongst white people. And I don't want to do that with a headline that is going to hurt anybody. So last week on Friday, they found in Kamloops, which is part of British Columbia where I live, they found on the land of a former residential school 215 bodies of children, some as young as 3 years old, who were buried there, who were discarded. These were children who had been pulled from their homes by the Catholic Church, who had been originally it was the church that was pulling these kids away from their families to like de-Indian them. They were trying to rob them of their heritage and their connection to their culture and their language and their traditions. They were trying to Canadianize them in some messed up way, and they did a lot of harm, and a lot of these kids did not make it back. Now, this sounds like something you might be thinking was like in the Pilgrim era. Residential schools, the last one closed in 1996. This is not ancient history. This is now. There are people who are alive who experienced the atrocities that took place at this school because it wasn't, and not just this school, but these were schools across the country. And it wasn't just the pulling them away from their families and their roots. It was the abuses that they endured. It was terrible. And I said I was a recovering Catholic. My family are Catholic, and so I have this one part of my own lineage that did this extreme hurt, these atrocities, these in some cases bordering on genocide. Maybe not bordering. I don't know what the official definition is that how many people have to die for it to be considered genocide, but it was fucking horrific. And they weren't all children, but these ones were children. And what do you say to that? What do you say to a place where this took place, where it started out being something that was, orchestrated by the Catholic Church, and then it became funded by our federal government for a long time. So Canadian tax dollars paid for these atrocities. And I don't know what to do with that. Particularly because these aren't ancient hurts. And even if they were just ancient hurts, I am a firm believer that we have our stories, our pain, and our trauma that is passed down from our lineage. So even, the people who came before me who experienced things in this line, who I have never met and who I have no connection to, partially because these people have been pulled away, partially in the case of our family, records not being kept properly, records being destroyed, and so I have no way to even trace things back. This is the extreme example of how we are robbed of our rights, our rituals, our roots, where we came from. It's the kind of thing you can't just find on Wikipedia and reconnect with it. It is a deep wound, and it is passed down energetically through our cells, our DNA. And for those who were unlucky enough to experience this firsthand, it was something that they lived with. And I don't know how we make peace with that. Doing the work is something, it's a term that's thrown around a lot around the internet, and a lot of it is understanding and unpacking our own internalized racism. I'm someone who actually, because my mom is definitely much more presenting than I am. I never grew up around any of the language of the stereotypes and everything that people talk about now in terms of Indigenous individuals. And when I moved to BC, I was shocked to hear how they were talked about, let alone how they were treated. And the news that came out on Friday, for everyone else, we were like, "Oh my God, that's so shocking, that's so awful," and we're having this like deep collective grief. But these people have known this was happening. These are their children. This isn't news to them. Now it's just the news is being thrown in their news feeds on every social media platform and in every newspaper. They're having to now relive these atrocities. And it's awful and it's unfair what we have done to them. And there is no way to erase. I mean, our government has this bullshit plan around reconciliation, and they have done nothing. Now, for the longest time, because I was educated in Catholic school, there was no mention of residential schools when I grew up. I didn't even know they took place until I think I was in my mid to late 20s. And I remember watching a documentary late at night and being like blown away. And whenever I would talk to people, I was like, "Did you know this thing happened?" They all knew. It was like this undiscussed thing. It is like the ugliest side. And I can't even say of our history, I would say of our nation, period, because the residential schools might have happened last one might have happened in 1996, but the atrocities are still happening today. The um, the discrimination is happening, but worse than that is like this dismissal of this whole group of people. The fact that we have the whole murdered and missing Indigenous women as like a category of people that police are not looking for. They're not making the effort to. They're just like, closed case, cold case, whatever. And they just let these people off. We have murderers like Picton who killed however many of them. We don't even know ultimately. He only got convicted for some of them, most of which were Indigenous women, many of which were sex workers. And we treated these people like they were disposable, and they're not. They're people. And these children were people. These children mattered. Like I said, when I started this live, I didn't come to you with any answers today. I want to make sure that you understand that these things are happening, particularly if you're Canadian, because this is part of our story, not our ancient history. This is fucking happening now. We need to look at the stuff within ourselves, the biases that we have, the assumptions that we make, and ask ourselves like why we believe that to even be true. We need to diversify the accounts that we follow so that we get a lot more exposure. What's really beautiful about a platform like TikTok, for instance, is like the For You page is so much based on the algorithm. So the more that you engage with of a particular type of content, the more it's going to show of you. And I get a lot of Indigenous creators on there in particular, and that's who I've been following since I joined TikTok. However, it also has meant that I had to take a break from TikTok this weekend because the conversations that are happening there are so painful. And I'm kind of walking that fine line between I need to know these things, I need to hear these truths, the discomfort of that, which is what I teach even with my in my client work, of leaning into this pain and not pretending it doesn't happen because it's not high vibe and lovely, but also with that self-care of, and this is how much I can manage right now so that I don't go down this spiral, so that the pain and the grief that I'm feeling in my heart is not consuming me. And it's hard, I'm not gonna lie. Before all of this happened, I had launched my retreat, A Weekend of Rituals. And the whole point, like, this is like the fucking irony of it. The whole point was to be able to help guide women who have lost connection to their roots, to help guide them back, to give them different tools and rites and rituals that they can do within their own homes and within their own lives, and not with big fancy tools, and not with having to like learn an entire history to be able to do this work. And it's because I feel like it's important that we have a connection to our roots or to roots. Maybe we are so distanced, or maybe there isn't a way to trace our way back, so we plant new ones. I had chosen a wonderful organization, so I'm this is a little apology to my sponsors. I sent out a package to my sponsors letting them know that a portion of the proceeds was going to be going to this one particular charity. However, in light of Friday's events, I feel like a combination of the people who endured the atrocities of the residential school system as well as their descendants, they are in a lot of pain right now. And so I need to redirect and choose another First Nations charity in particular. This one's called the IRSS, maybe another S. I'm going to put the link to it it's the Indian Residential School Survivors Society or something along those lines. They today I clicked on their page to make a donation, and originally their form was broken, so they had such an outpouring, and that makes my heart so happy. Such an outpouring that their donation system broke, but it is back up right now. I'm going to go and add the link to that in the comments below. And a portion of the profits of the event are going to go to this organization, so they'll have all of that money by the end of June, because this work is big and it is ongoing, and it is, yes, we've had this big uprising because we have this new piece of knowledge, but it goes deeper than that, further than that. You know, when we look at all of the stereotypes that we have, and these bullshit assumptions that people have made about an entire people, it's ridiculous. But when I think about those that are suffering, it is no surprise that they are in this much pain. They are, um, they have endured the unthinkable, and not all of them live to tell the tale. But the ones that did, they are carrying such a heavy burden for all the ones who came before them. And it's the thing that is often not talked about within families. And so the stories might not be getting passed down, but the trauma is. We feel it in our DNA and our cells. So I'm going to add those to the comments. And I would love for you to just start to think about your biases. Think about being willing to lean into your discomfort, to not take it personally, and to feel it. that's where I am right now, is just feeling it, letting it move through me, and then figuring out what it means later. It's not a time to think. Gotta spend more time here in the heart. I hope this message finds you well. Take care.